microphone is... Yes, it's working. So the directors are still here. Please give them a warm hand. It's still Ross Adam and Rob Cannan. Please come to the light. We want to involve you, of course, in this session. Sie können auch gerne Fragen auf Deutsch stellen. Wir haben ein Saalmikro. We have a microphone in the room, so if you want to ask a question, please wait until the microphone is there so that we can hear you. So I would like to start. I mean, this is a story that has really totally changed the life of this couple. How easy or difficult was it to convince her to actually tell you this story for your film?
Well, it did take a long time. When we first approached her, we found that other people were talking to her and she'd been approached many times. And the family had been very cautious about who they allowed to tell the story. So we did spend a lot of time, had several trips out to South Korea to meet them, took some nice presents, some English teas and jams, and gradually built trust. And she, in the end, decided that she'd allow us to tell her story.
So, yes, please. There's Mike. One moment.
Hi, thanks for this really fascinating story. I had a Japanese colleague telling me about that Japanese were abducted too, so I knew about this kind of stuff, but this is really amazing. Has North Korea ever reacted to the defection? Have they been tried to get back, or has there been some statement by North Korea?
There's no official statement about it. I don't know what they would say. Strangely, after Shin and Choi escaped, they got a phone call whilst in Los Angeles, and it was Kim Jong-il's first minister of film saying, how's it going over there? We've still got your underwater studio, things are still going here, do you want to, maybe come back, I think was the idea. So the relationship is strange between them. But also, previously before that, just after they'd escaped in 1986, North Koreans are generally brought into halls to be told all kinds of stuff, but they were told Shin and Choi had betrayed the nation and run away with money, essentially. So that was their reaction in North Korea.
Thanks.
You have in the film, there's quite a lot of scenes where we're not quite sure are they original scenes or not. You're using a lot of old footage, but I have the suspicion that you also recreated some material. I mean, the car chase in Vienna, I don't think they actually filmed that. I mean, they would have liked to.
Made things easier than truth.
Yeah, but how much material was there that you could use, and at what point did you have to say, well, we actually would like to show some pictures, now we have to make them ourselves?
We never intended our recreations to kind of be recreations that people wouldn't be able to tell whether they are or not, so it's nice to hear that it's hard to tell. I mean, we knew very early on that they made a lot of movies, and so we'd be able to find lots of things in the films which would kind of reflect different parts of their real story, but we knew there were very specific things in the story which would not be in the movies and we would have to recreate. So it was a gradual process of going through the films. They made hundreds of films, so... But
you didn't have to recreate the North Korean films they made. They were available, or...?
They smuggled them out, yeah. Well, 5 of them they managed to smuggle out, and so that's what you see in the movie.
There is
one question here.
Yeah.
Weren't a couple of these films actually shown in Berlin a couple of years ago, or was that Rotterdam? I think there were 5 or 6 North Korean films shown at a major film festival a couple of years back. That's not the question I have. I just thought of that. The question is how
the forum section, so
possibly. But how convinced are you that Shin Sang-ok was not a willing collaborator after a certain point? You touch on the subject, and I remember this story from 10 years ago, and it was never quite clear. And this is the first time I've heard these tapes. Probably everybody has heard these tapes, and I think they're fairly new evidence. But still, how convinced are you of that? I mean, he was a more or less washed-up director, and he was presented with all possibilities imaginable. and 5 years of prison and brainwashing.
Yeah.
Well,
So
the key thing what
what's
you
your
said there
take on it?
is after a certain point. I think that we both believe they were kidnapped, but there is a question which we were very intrigued by as filmmakers who have struggled to make a film, and it's hard making films, and so if you have it all taken away and then you are given it all by this dictator, yes, there's a certain temptation there, and so that's what we wanted to explore, and that became very evident when we heard these tapes, where he's actually pondering this dilemma himself. He's saying, can I betray this man? He's given me everything. So I think, yeah, there's a certain sense that, yes, it's difficult to escape from North Korea, whatever the case, but also he was given everything. They had luxurious lives. They weren't living like common North Koreans. So I think there is a sense that maybe they stayed longer than they had to. But again, this is not something we can ever know, because the plan to escape from North Korea was a difficult one to enact and took years. So there's ambiguity there. So it's up to you really to decide, I guess.
But is that something that Choi would get into with you?
We did ask this question, but of course, what is she going to say? They always wanted to escape. But there is also a sense, and I think it's there in the film, a little bit of a Stockholm syndrome sense from Choi's relationship to Kim. We can't really imagine what it was like to be kidnapped, put in a summer house for 5 years, and then made to make films for more years. It's a strange circumstance, so I think we can forgive her for that, but she was never openly critical of Kim Jong-il in the way we expected her to be.
There's a question up in the back. There was somebody earlier than you, sorry.
I was wondering what happened with the two other children of Shin, because have you found them? What's the story with his second girlfriend?
We met the son who you see appearing in the South Korean protest towards the end of the film. He actually still lives in Los Angeles because the children all went to live together with Shin and Choi in LA after a while. The mother from the affair, the mistress, she allowed the children to go, and then tragically she died in a car crash a few years later. But she remarried someone else before that.
Yeah. No shortage of melodrama in the film.
Yeah.
So you have something left for part 2.
Yeah.
There was a question down here.
Yes, here in the front.
I'm just curious that given how close they were to the leader and supposedly they were under constant surveillance, and in the movie it looks surprisingly easy for them to smuggle out the tapes first and then to contact with the foreign countries and then the escape. It also seems very surprisingly easy. And
I mean, obviously it took time to build trust, and it was a while before they were allowed to travel abroad, and then it was a while before they were allowed to be in the same place together abroad. At the same time, Kim wanted them to be meeting foreign journalists because he wanted to promote the films, so they could meet foreign journalists, and he also didn't want it to look like they were prisoners. So the bodyguards were there, but they were asked to keep a little bit of distance, and that's why they were gradually able to meet people and give them a package under the table.
I think that also speaks to the psychology of Kim Jong-il, because I don't think he could really imagine that his prized toys would want to escape like this. And I think it's evident in the tapes as well, the kind of conversations they have, the tone of them. It's very genial. So I think that even though the minders were there, I just don't think he ever imagined that they would really escape in this way or want to escape, because he'd given them everything. And he thought he was a god. So.
When you hear in the tape, Shin is very good at playing the game, in a sense they were both manipulating each other, but Shin was playing a game.
Well, I'm going to grab the chance and actually ask 2 questions. So, well, one is more of a technical aspect. You thanked BFI very much. I can expect this is one of your archival sources, and the movies that they that the couple Smuggled. Could you talk more about the other sources? Because obviously you did a very terrific job putting a lot of stuff together there, and it'd be nice to hear about
where the archive came from.
Yeah, where the archival material came from. Yeah. Can I ask the other? Should I ask the other?
Okay.
Yeah, just ask the other question. Second, other sources that, other filmmakers and writers that have written about this story did suggest that there was a political aspect to the problems they had in South Korea, and that seemed to have been not really mentioned in your film, and I was interested about your choice in that matter.
Okay, well, on the archive, I mean, it took a long time to find all of the archive that you see in the film. We had a great archivist working with us. There is North Korean produced propaganda. We can't tell you how we got that, but we did get it from North Korea. It wasn't easy. You also see footage shot on film in North Korea at the time that Shin and Choi were there. Some was shot by a Polish documentary filmmaker and has been seen a little bit, but not that widely. We thought that was amazing footage and we saw we had to use it. The really kind of quite subjective, candid camera work that you see, that was actually shot by an East German film team who were allowed, free access to just film around Pyongyang in 1984. And it's never been seen. Our archivist found this archive here in Germany, and it had just been sat on a dusty shelf, never used. And we were amazed when we saw it and thought, wow, this really shows North Koreans just going about their daily lives in 1984. Anything else?
Well, the second question, it's about economy, really. You can't include everything in the film. We would have liked to. There's so many details to the story. It's a very rich story. That was one of the ones we decided. The film can't stomach two dictators. Essentially, there's a South Korean dictator, not quite the same level as Kim Jong-il, but yes, he was there. But that wasn't, I don't think, as integral to the story as him having an affair. So we made it a character-based story. That's how you're led into it. So yes, there is historical detail, which I kind of we and ahed about, we want to include, but you just can't do everything.
Yeah, it would have taken a long time to explain why he fell out with the South Korean government at the time.
Hi. Firstly, fantastic documentary. Great story, well told.
Thank you.
Question I had was, given the reaction that North Korea had to the interview, the terrible film starring Seth Rogen and company, are you expecting similar rhetoric and opprobrium from the regime in North Korea?
We're hoping not, but...
I'm hoping if the better the film is, maybe the less comment they make. I don't know, hopefully. We don't know what they're going to say. I think they're very unpredictable. I don't think really we're as big a profile as the interview, so I don't expect that much. Yeah.
Second question, what's your next project? What's after this?
Ask us in a few weeks. We've literally just finished this film, so...
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was another question, I think, right behind you.
Thank you. Just one question on the tapes. How were they vetted? Because I don't speak Korean. The State Department of Home Affairs said nobody had heard the voice. So I wonder, though, on tapes, I mean, not that you had to vet them, but in terms of what we heard, Cold War issues, South North Korea, the gentleman working for obviously South Korean intelligence, which you interviewed. So I'm not going into, you wonder what evidence or how did you try to check the evidence on the tapes that they were not fabricated or somehow by some source to make it look like, not questioning the story, but it's always something when these kind of, secret service are playing out against each other. I wonder, what did you do or how did you vet them? Thank you.
Well, it's a good question, and you see Mike Yee in the film. He used to work for South Korean intelligence, and then he started working for the CIA. In the film, we weren't actually allowed to put that on screen, but he was working for the CIA. We know that the CIA spent a lot of time vetting the tapes, and he had heard Kim Jong-il's voice. He wasn't allowed to tell us how, but we assume they'd tapped a phone call or something. They'd heard Kim Jong-il talking, so that's why he was asked to debrief Shin and Choi. because he'd heard Kim Jong-il's voice, and in his opinion, it was Kim Jong-il. I mean, we've heard hours and hours of the tapes. I mean, it would be an amazing feat, I think, to fake them. That was our impression, and apparently that was the final decision from the CIA and also the Korean CIA.
So it's also to do with the extent of what's on the tapes. There's all these production meetings and just trivial things that, yeah, if they fabricated one thing, maybe, but there's just so much, hours and hours. So I just don't see how.
Sorry, but at the starting point, the story was in the public record, at least from the people. I mean, you start with the press conference, which they made in 1986 in Washington, where you start the movie from. So it was not kind of the story itself. I haven't heard of it, but it obviously was not new. But you didn't have a second source, except obviously for Secret Service sources.
Yes, only Secret Service sources.
Yeah, from intelligence service sources. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and you could well argue, well, did they have anything to gain by condoning this? Intelligence assets, etc., etc. So
no reproach.
No. It's that those are questions we asked ourselves, of course. So, and we can only really put the information forward, and the audience has to decide for themselves. But that's our conclusion.
Yes. Question in the first row.
Yeah, well, I'm representing the same Moscow Film Festival they've been so proud to be in. I'll be interested to know the opinion of Russian audience about it, because there is a long story of Russians in Soviet times going abroad to West, and I was really curious in the end of the film. These artists who tried to escape, they actually put a huge problem on people whom they left behind in North Korea. So they wanted to be free as an artist, and they thought about freedom for them, for two of them, but they might put a huge pressure on people who worked with them and whom they closed the chance to escape after their escape. So how hard did you try to push in interviews to question these kind of things? If they feel guilt that they escaped but cancel the chance.
They certainly do, and Choi did say they felt bad for even their bodyguards, who they became friends with, because they, on the one hand, they were looking after them as well as making sure they didn't run away, and they had no idea what would happen to these people after they escaped. Would they be punished for their escape? They did feel guilt. I mean, again, it's how much can you fit in the movie. We felt we wanted to include a sense from Choi that she felt some guilt for betraying Kim Jong-il, because we thought that was interesting in this kind of Stockholm syndrome thing. But certainly, we don't know what happened to the people who were meant to be looking after them.
But there's a difference between people they left behind and what does happen to North Korean defectors' families, and this is one of the reasons. This is how they make it so hard. It's a horrible thing, but obviously North Korean defectors, they risked their families' lives by escaping, but this wasn't the same. They weren't their families, so I think they survived, as far as we know.
We have time for one last question. Eine letzte Frage können wir noch reinbringen. The mic is coming to you.
I have a very, very short question. How you came to this idea to make this film? Like,
You can't have that the last one.
It's not a very exciting answer.
Like this attractive point of it, like.
Oh, an attractive point. I mean, there's many things. I mean.
But like the first, like, okay, we should make a film about this.
Well, I mean, we had this sort of idea in the back of our minds, but we kind of thought it's such an amazing story. Someone must have done something with the story. But then when we met up to bounce ideas, we thought, well, where is the film, about this? We haven't heard about it. And that's when we started investigating and decided to pursue it. But I mean, for us, the story had everything. And, as people who love cinema, it's a story about storytellers set in the world of cinema. And whether or not it was true, we thought it's an amazing story. If it wasn't true, how did the guy pull it off? So there was so much to it that attracted us.
Yeah, and if anything, somehow it increases the value of film. I know Kim Jong-il is a dictator, and he's a crazy dictator, but he kidnapped them to make films. Film must be important, right? That's one of the things that kind of attracted us, that a director would be important enough to kidnap. I mean, that's an egocentric thing, but yeah.
But you've seen all the films that they made in North Korea. Were they any good?
Not all, but...
Was it worth it being kidnapped to make these films?
Well, Shin thought it was worth it. He thought he made his best films in North Korea. We think his work in South Korea was better. I think there's something to be said for the limits put on filmmakers. You can, I shouldn't say that because we want more money, but the limiting, you're given all the money in the world doesn't mean you make great films. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, I think we have to end on this. Thank you all very much for coming. Don't forget the audience award cards. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
And I hope to see you again in these coming days here at the Panorama and Berlinale. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Larry, so we're going